Good afternoon, everybody. Now it's time for the closing commentary. Hello also online, in case you are still sticking with us. And Alexi, we have been preparing for this for the whole day, not only the few minutes before this speech or commentary. And we are really happy that we have been able to listen and hear all these really interesting presentations on art and culture and green sustainability issues. As Alexi said, I'm Hanna Koskimies and I come from the Ministry of Education and Culture from Finland, and I work a lot with art and culture education, and I'm responsible especially for the basic art education, and it's my honor to have my Danish colleague Mia here, if you like to tell what you do in your work, please.
Of course, yeah. Well, my name is Nadia Lippert, and I come from the Danish Agency for Culture and Palaces, which is an organization within the Cultural Ministry in Denmark. And I work in a team where we work with children and young people's engagement in art and culture. So this is my work.
Yes, and you are here also representing the Nordic Network for Art and Culture in Schools and Daycare Institutions. And Finland has the honor also to be part of that network since this year or last year, or anyways, now we are part of it, and it's a forum for state actors in the fields of art and culture, and it's targeted at children and young people in school and daycare institutions in the Nordic countries. And we have representatives from all the Nordic countries, and also the Nordic Council of Ministers Secretary can join the network, and Marianne is here as well from there. And the idea of the network is to exchange experiences and best practices and talk and get together and make strategies for the future. And we also serve as contact persons in our countries then related to these topics. So feel free to contact us if you have anything that you would like to tell us. And we meet once a year, and this year we are having our meeting here in the green capital of Europe, which is really great. And also thank you very much for having this Children's Culture Forum for all of us, also for the Nordic friends in English, and it's been really interesting and nice. But the point for us being here on stage was to comment on the presentations that we have heard and reflect maybe our own ideas on the topics that have been discussed and presented. And we thought that it would be maybe interesting to do it that way, that I would interview Mia a bit on certain topics, and of course our perspective is then that from, or in which positions we work in order to enhance the sustainability in art and culture education and in green sustainability and so on. So let's start. I would first like to maybe hear your thoughts about the definitions for green sustainability related to these presentations that we saw, and how do you see that green sustainability was defined? And then the second question: do you think that we always need to define that term, or do we actually already know what we are talking about?
Well, thank you, Hanna, and I'd always also like to say thank you for the arrangement, Alexi. It is really a fine forum, and thank you to all of you and to the presentators from this morning. It was very exciting presentations you give, and they were very inspiring. When I think about the definitions of the projects, I think it was not clear to me in which way the definition of green sustainability was used in all of the projects. I mean, we have some definitions which were where at least I heard it between the lines. It was about what do you call it? The carbon emission, having a lower carbon emission. Sometimes it was about biodiversity, and sometimes it was about, bringing the health to the babies, for instance. And maybe there has been other definitions which has lied behind the projects as a kind of underscoring or kind of movement, but I didn't catch them up. And of course, you can always discuss, is it so important? The reason maybe why I think it's important to look at is that it's because it also kind of make you think about another aspect of projects combining green sustainability and young children and young people's engagement in art and culture, which has to do with the purpose. And if I can elaborate a bit on that, Hanna, then I think it's very interesting to look on the purpose of the project, and not to say that anything is better than something else, but I've heard that, for instance, at the Sustainable Guide, which was very interesting to hear, I kind of caught maybe two purposes from the guide, one was to, and maybe I've understood it wrong, but one was to reduce the climate anxiety among young people, and the other one was to reduce the carbon emission. And I'm kind of, I'm very curious, because I did a bit of research in Denmark in order to see, okay, what are we actually doing within this agenda? And I must say, we don't have a national agenda like you have. I mean, emerging children's engagement with art and culture with green sustainability. So I just found some fragmented projects. Mm-hmm. And on these projects, it was also very hard for me to differ what the actual purpose actually is. And why I think it's interesting is that, it would also be very nice to kind of figure out when you have a purpose, for instance, to reduce young people's climate anxiety, how could we then seek into or scrutinize how it is perceived by the children or the young people who participate? And that is what I'm very curious to see. And I think maybe you can only find that answer if you look on each individual project. You can't just, you can all look at it on an abstract level. You have to focus on the individual project. But I think it's important also to know if you are actually hitting the target, or if you might be doing, if you might be not working with the right methods. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking, still going back to the definition, I'm thinking that just as you said that, there are so versatile definitions, and then if we kind of makes us think also the versatility of the whole issue, and I think that it's very good that there are these different views towards sustainability. And what comes to the purpose, I think that we were presented also many tools how to work on these goals, which need to be followed and checked how we get to those targets that we set. I think that it was this picture of the bicycle was really interesting to me, and I was wondering, because Christina and Janina talked about just hopping in and starting to pedal, even if we maybe are not able to yet, or just taking those ones in on the bike that maybe are not ready, or that don't know how to do it. But I was thinking that how do you see that we are at the moment? Are we able to ride the bike, or where are we?
Well,
or where are you in Denmark compared to Finland?
Well, unfortunately, I can't give you a national mapping over our projects on this matter, because we don't have. I'm not in a position to have this kind of overview. It would be very nice to have, but maybe it will come in due time. But I mean, thinking of the bicycle, I get to think that, and what can we do? I get to think that I think it's, from my point of view, I think it's important to differentiate between two dimensions of projects with art and culture and green sustainability with children and young people. I think there is to me there is an aspect of a part which has to do with the production. That's a lot of the choices who, at least for the children from 0 to 13, 14 years old, is being taken by the professionals, which is regarding the choice of materials, the logistic planning, taking the train instead of the buses,
everyday
and
sustainability.
yeah, so forth. All the things that, I mean, eating vegetarian and so forth. And then there is the other aspect, the other part of the project, which has to do with artistic theme, expression. And there I can say, in Denmark, you can find a lot of projects, theater projects, which probably would thematize eco-crisis or climate. Mm-hmm. And you could probably also find projects demanding young people or children to express their thoughts or do writing or theater in any artistic mm-hmm. ways within the theme of climate and eco-crisis. And I just think it's important to, as being the professional behind these projects, to be very to thoroughly think about how come you will work with green sustainability, because I mean if you choose to go like all in and you as professional work with the production part and you kind of make it as green as possible, and you make a room for the children to express artistically and investigate into questions about climate and eco-crisis. I just think you have a really you're making some choices which gives you a big responsibility in regard to make sure that you don't, increase the anxiety in regards of climate. And what my concern is, and it might be irrelevant, I don't know, but my concern is that young people and children today, they are facing, of course, a lot of external problems. That's why we have 17 world goals. There are a lot of problems to be solved. Mm-hmm. But we also have a tradition, for at least in the Nordic countries, for using the spaces within the art forms to give young people and children an oasis from the problems, yes. The external problems. They have an oasis from relating themselves to all the problems in the world, and that oasis I mean, is being challenged. I could fear in some way. I'm not sure, but it is challenged in some way when these. It could also be some of the other questions from the 17-year-old girl who comes in and kind of wants to take part of this free room. I just think, I mean, these oases could also be a way for children to find out, I mean, how do I relate to myself and my gender or my identity or my, I mean, we have a lot of other existential questions we have to deal with as human beings besides the green sustainability problems. But it's important. I'm not saying it's not important. I just say and just to finish, I'm sorry. Maybe we have to find a place to reload sometimes, and at least for the children and the young people to deal with all the challenges in the world. Sorry.
I think that we could talk here for an hour, and I'm supposed to interview you, but I have to comment a few things. I was just thinking that we heard today, at least our minister told in the beginning when he had his speech, that at least in Finland we relate to the professionals, like that the art educators are professionals. So what comes to this, that which tools we use when we deal with the topic of sustainability or these green issues, we need to kind of trust those art educators that they make the right decisions. And we heard today a lot about how art can give us tools to imagine the future and imagine new futures. And I believe personally that art education can build these we can through art education build these hopeful scenarios. And I don't see that it's just like, or not just, but only like handling a certain theme like sustainability through a certain media in a certain art sector. It's a lot bigger issue what we can deal during or through art education, like this empathy and all of these issues that we will continue in the evening. But anyways, maybe this comes to the or leads us to the next point that I wanted to tell you or ask you, that Maristo in her presentation said that we cannot solve problems using the same kind of thinking that caused those problems. So, and also Juha Hurme and Tiina Susiluoto also related to children's way of thinking and doing things. So I think that I wanted to ask you that how do you see that what can we learn from the children as adults, and are we listening enough, and are we asking enough what they think? And also June said that they are the generation who is to solve the problem that maybe some former generations caused. And then after this, I have one more question related to accessibility, if we have time, and then.
Well, can you repeat the first question, Hanna?
Yeah. What do you think about what can we or could we learn something from the children as well, and not see us only as educators and teachers and state workers, but how do we listen? Do we hear? What can we learn?
Yeah, I can say I can't speak on behalf of the projects here in Finland, but I can say that in Denmark, I think there are a lot of, we have really fine professionals and really clever, intelligent professionals within the children's cultural sector as well. But sometimes, maybe we see a tendency sometimes that we kind of professionals fall in love in a certain concept of developing a project or an initiative to children and young people without really, without maybe always be curious to know how is it impacting in reality the children, and how does it work, and what is not working, and what could it, how can their perception and reception of the activities bring back to us as professionals in learning. How should we, regulate our way of working with children and young people, and at least I think maybe in a context of Denmark, I think we have a lot to learn in order to, maybe I'm not answering your question totally, Hanna, but I'm moving a bit out. We have a lot to learn in terms of reaching out to the groups of children and young people who don't even participate in artistic activities. So we don't even, actually there's a lot of potential knowledge. Yeah. Which I don't even know what it is, but it is there, out there.
Yeah, this comes to the accessibility, which is being discussed a lot in Finland, and we have had the Arts Equal research, and Art Testers was a good example on how making art and culture accessible, and we have the Finnish model for leisure activities, which was also mentioned at the beginning of the day. How do you think that we could make art and culture activities more accessible? And do you think that these sustainability aspects might have some sort of influence on this matter? Positive or negative?
Yeah, positive and negative. Well, I would say, if I start with the first question, I think, reaching out to all children and young people, it takes a whole strategy in itself. And it takes that you work with social sustainability, that you are aware of the group of children and young people who don't participate, and you have to be, as a professional, very curious to find out what are their barriers for having access to the activities, and what are the barriers for the children to actually experiencing quality in the activities. And so I think, and then there's some other steps I don't think we have the time to dig into, but maybe that's the first steps. And then I think then we have to, change the core structures of the sector, the children's cultural sector. So the inventions or the findings are not only lied within a project which stops, but that it is actually anchored in the society and in the structures. In a Danish context, it would be in the cooperation between schools and music schools and artists and art institutions and pedagogues and and so forth.
Doing it together.
Yes,
yeah.
But working in another way.
Yeah. I hope then that you might have gotten some inspiration from today's presentations also to bring with you back to Denmark.
We surely have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the whole day, and we wish you a nice day tomorrow then as well. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for being here.